The Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram is the foundation ritual of Golden Dawn magic. It's the only ritual historically taught to students of the Outer Order, and no other ritual has been so widely taught, adapted, and sometimes even outright abused as the LBRP. But while there are a lot of presentations out there on what the LBRP is, I feel a number of them could do a better job of teaching you how to do it. That's why in this video, geared toward the novice, I'm giving you the no BS LBRP. No unnecessary details, no unnecessary explanations, just the minimum amount of information you need to know to be able to perform the LBRP correctly and competently in the Golden Dawn tradition. Whatever your first impressions may have been, the LBRP isn't a lengthy or complex ritual, but sometimes you just need to see these things done to get a feel for them. I'm going to demonstrate the LBRP for you from start to finish, but first I'm going to walk you through what you need to know, point out the places where you're likely to run into some difficulties, and give you some tips for overcoming those, and identify any potential pitfalls to avoid along the way. The first thing I'm going to recommend for any beginner is not to worry about visualizations while you're first figuring out how to do the ritual. Focus on getting the correct words and movements down first. You can add in the visualizations later when you're comfortable with the basics. Now, assuming you're doing this indoors, the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out which wall is easternmost in your space. The room you're in may not be laid out exactly along the compass directions, and that's fine. Just find the direction that's closest to east, and you'll use that as your initial starting direction. You don't need a lot of space to perform the ritual in either. You can do it all standing in one spot and rotating in place, and in fact that's the way I do it most of the time. As long as you're able to stretch your arms out to their full length and have a few inches of room left to spare, that's all the space you should need. So starting with your index finger of your right hand, you're going to raise it up and bring it down to the tip of your forehead and say Ata, then down to about halfway between your sternum and your navel and say Malchut, then to your right shoulder say Vegabura, to your left shoulder saying Vegadula. Spread your arms out wide and say Le'olam, and then back to a clasping position, Amen. You're going to vibrate this, and vibration is just a technical term used in the Golden Dawn to mean a resonant sort of intonation. So don't worry about it too much. It's a lot easier to get the hang of it when you see it than it is from a description. So doing this with vibration, what we're going to do is Ata Malchut Vegebura Vegedula Leolam Amen. If you have voice training, use your singing anatomy for this. You are going for resonance here. But you also don't need to use a loud voice, you don't need to shout. A lot of us live in small apartments or have partners or neighbors or dogs that we need to be concerned about. Don't worry about being loud here. The important thing is to project. So as long as you can project, you can do it silently. You can say, "Ah-ta," rather than "ah-ta," and that's perfectly fine. The term used for that is called the great voice, and I don't want to get into the weeds too much on it here, but just know that it's a perfectly legitimate way of doing it. Getting the words of the kabbalistic cross committed to memory is the first hurdle you're going to need to overcome in order to perform the LBRP. Fortunately, it's just a matter of memorization, and once you get the order down, practice will make it second nature for you pretty quickly. The kabbalistic cross can also be used on its own, so getting comfortable with doing the kabbalistic cross first as a separate ritual can help you more easily transition into learning the LBRP. After the kabbalistic cross is done, it's time to draw the pentagrams in the circle. As with the kabbalistic cross, I'm going to use the index finger of my right hand to trace the pentagrams in the circles. You can feel free to use an appropriate ritual dagger, a sword, a stick of incense, or any number of other things to act as an implement to do this with. But you don't need anything more than your finger. And I recommend that's how new students work, because once you get it down with your finger, it's easy enough from there to make substitutions. The second hurdle you're likely to encounter as a student is learning the correct names of God to vibrate in the four quarters. The first name that you're going to vibrate is Yod-He-Vav-He, always spelled out, never pronounced. The second name, as you turn around to the south, is Adonai. In the west, Ehye, and in the north, Agala. Now, it can be difficult to keep track of these, especially when you're first learning, and even years later, I guarantee you will have a day one day where you forget the name of God that you're supposed to be vibrating the relevant quarter, and say to yourself, well, crap. But I guarantee you that while it may seem like a lot to keep track of now, before long it will be second nature to you. While you're first learning the correct order, it may help to make a bit of a mantra of the four names. You can say to yourself, Yod-He-Vav-He, Adonai Ehiyeh Agala, Yod-He-Vav-He, Adonai Ehiyeh Agala, and make that into a mantra in your head until you get the ordering correct. Now, before we start tracing pentagrams, I'm going to introduce you to the sign of the Emperor and the sign of silence. The sign of the Emperor is used to charge pentagrams along with the vibration of the relevant god name in the quarter. The sign of silence is used to withdraw that current of energy. The sign of the Emperor is given by bringing your hands up, level with your ears, fingers pointing forward. You're going to lift your left foot off the ground, step it forward about 6 inches, and as you do, you are going to thrust your fingers forward. Your thumbs should be level with your eyes, and as you do that, you're going to vibrate the name of God appropriate to the quarter. From there, you will give the sign of silence, which is given by placing the index finger of the left hand to the lips while stepping the left foot back about 6 inches and stamping it lightly on the ground. So again, the sign of the Emperor and the sign of silence. Generally speaking, because you'll be charging the pentagram and you'll be traveling around the circle from there, I usually leave my right hand out as I'm doing the sign of silence. So I make the sign of the Emperor and the sign of silence. Alright, so you're going to trace the pentagram from the lower left point, about level with your left hip. You're going to trace it from that point to a point right above your forehead, level with about the top of your head, then back down to your right hip, over to your left shoulder, then to your right shoulder, and back down to your left hip. After you trace the figure of the pentagram, you're going to give the sign of the Emperor in that direction and vibrate the appropriate god name, and then give the sign of silence, and then continue around to the next point in the circle. You're going to continue that in the 4 quarters. Once you've traced the pentagrams in the 4 quarters and you've completed your circle, you're almost finished. Now you just have the invocation of the 4 archangels and the closing kabbalistic cross. For right now, don't worry about learning the elemental attributions of the quarters or which archangel is associated with which element. Those are important things to learn, but right now you're just focusing on getting the ritual down. So you can add to it once you're comfortable with the words and actions, but don't overwhelm yourself too much at the very beginning. To perform the invocation of the archangels, you're going to stand in place, once again, facing the east. You're going to spread your arms wide in the form of a cross. You're going to say, before me, Raphael. Behind me, Gabriel. At my right hand, Michael. At my left hand, Uriel. For about me flame the pentagrams, and in the column shines the 6-rayed star. Now again, that's before me Raphael, behind me Gabriel, at my right hand Michael, at my left hand Uriel. Now you're going to perform the closing kabbalistic cross once more. Ata malchut vegebura vegedula leolam amen. And you're done. That is the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. So now that we've run through each part of the ritual individually, I'm going to walk through it from start to finish so you can see what it looks like. Feel free to rewind and watch the demonstration as many times as you need for it to make sense, and feel free to join in and do it along with me once you're comfortable. Ata malchut vegebura vegedula leolam amen. Yod He Vav He. Adonai. Ehiyeh. Agla. Before me, Raphael. Behind me, Gabriel. At my right hand, Michael. At my left hand, Uriel. For about me flame the pentagrams, and in the column shines the six-rayed star. Ata Malchut V'Gebura V'Gedula Le'olam. Amen. Thank you for watching. I hope this video has been informative. If you'd like to get in touch with me, or if you'd like to see more of my work, a link to my website and contact information is below. Thanks.